Hello, welcome to the Heated Debate brought to you by Emirates. England are playing today, so of course we all become England managers on the day of the game, questioning all of the decisions that Gareth Southgate has got to make. And today is like no other. Rory, Zac, 5 key decisions that Gareth Southgate has to get right ahead of this round of 16 game against Senegal. We've got 5 areas of the pitch. We've already put 6 in. These are ones we think they're stuck. Zac, they're not going to change. First of all, before we get into the 5 key decisions to make, happy with those 6?
Yeah, for sure. I think everyone on that pitch has performed to a decent degree. I think Luke Shaw's maybe the one you could argue for. However, I think with the other players available, there's just no real out-and-out left-back unless you're kind of squeezing in someone like Kieran Trippier. The backline, these two have arguably been our best players this whole tournament. They've been fantastic. Pickford hasn't actually had that much to deal with. Rice is one of the guys that's always in that midfield, and when it comes to Harry Kane, I mean, arguably the best player in the entire team has to be playing, so it's not a shock.
Right then, well, let's get into the 5 that we do have to get right. Starting at right back, we've got plenty of choice. We always talk about Rory, the fact we've got Walker, we've got Trippier, we've got Trent. Reece James obviously didn't make it into the squad. So, for you, mate, who's got to start? Who's got to be in that right back decision?
Well, it's a wonderful problem for Gareth Southgate to have. I mean, we identify this as being tricky, we identify it as being a problem, and of course it is. It's a headache, but it's a beautiful headache. It's something that is a luxurious position to be in because ultimately you can't really make the wrong decision. You're choosing between 2 top-tier players. You're choosing between basically Kyle Walker or potentially Kieran Trippier as well, actually. Potentially Kieran Trippier as well. But for me, I think Kyle Walker will probably get the nod, but I think that we can't do this too easily because Trent Alexander-Arnold brings so much to the team. And one thing that England particularly lacked in that game against the USA, the best team that we faced so far was the USA, and we lacked one crucial ingredient. The ingredient was creativity. Arguably the most creative player in the entire squad is Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Oh, I get that, right? I get it, and we've heard what Cafu said about Trent, and we know that even he's come out and said about the whole defensive thing, and it's a lazy opinion. I agree with that completely. I don't think it's a case of, personally, that Trent isn't good enough to play right back. I just think that Walker's better. Genuinely, I think that Walker is the best right back in the Premier League right now. Yes, he's had his injuries. Kieran Trippier started a couple of games. You're telling me that Kieran Trippier would have started if Walker would have been fit. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
It's a shame because if this is the Trent Alexander-Arnold of a season and a half ago, there's no debate. There really isn't. This is a guy who was the best right back in the world. His numbers going forward were ridiculous for someone in his position. And the fact that he's been doing it since such a young age, it's such a shame because when it came to the Euros, it was the debate whether he would even make the squad. And now, obviously, the defensive side, I think, is something that Gareth worries about. One thing we've known a lot for his England team is defensively they've been very, very strong. They don't concede a lot of goals, and that's, I think, is what he prioritises over maybe an attacking fullback. I think that's, in an ideal world, if Reece James was fit, I think Reece James would probably be playing because he's a mix of both sides of what he loves. You say Trent, I probably think Kyle Walker.
Do you know, just for the shape of it, I'm not putting it on the board, I appreciate that the board is sacred, right? But just to get the shape, that to me has a very nice feel to it. Because if you think about a lot of England's brilliance in this tournament, and we've seen a lot of goals have been scored, this right channel is really attacking for us.
So important.
Some of our best moments come down this right channel. Kane drifts wide, whips it in, he whips it in, Foden scores. Kane drifts wide, whips it in, Raheem Sterling scores. This side is our potent threat.
I'm telling you, Walker, he's got to go in there. Like, you're both wrong, okay, I'm just going to say that, all right? Okay, Walker, surely a fit Kyle Walker, get him in some game time as well, possibly France in the next round, all right? He's the only player that could keep up with Mbappe. Yes, I'm getting ahead of myself, I understand that, but he needs the game time. That's the smart move, and that's who I'd be putting in.
And one of the things that I thought was quite different and impressive from Walker in the game against Wales is normally with our fullbacks you're expecting them to make that overlapping run, but Walker wasn't actually doing that. Walker instead was dropping into midfield and allowing maybe Bellingham to go out forward, or in the game Henderson was also pushing on. Even someone like Declan Rice could do that, which I thought was really interesting because I don't feel like I'd seen him do that, at least for England recently, was instead of going round here, dropping in here. Again, it's also because Stones was so magnificent and so good on the ball and can make great decisions. But in terms of this game that's happening tonight, I think it is going to be Kyle Walker.
By the way, I love that I spent so much time writing out Kieran Trippier on one of these. We've not even shown it, guys. We've not even shown it. Right, we've got to lock in one of these right now.
2v1, I think it is.
Democracy reigns.
I'll let you.
Okay, we'll swap them over.
There.
Walker, look at that. That is England's current strongest defence. That's all I'm going to say. Right, Declan Rice, he's got to start. Yeah. We think that. However, do you play the way they did? Bellingham, Henderson? Do you have both of those? You bring in Mount? Do you have Phillips? I mean, spoiler alert, we didn't even write Calvin Phillips on one of the magnets because none of us think he's going to feature, or at least start.
Yeah, at least I think he might feature because one of the things that I thought when he came on was how much. You could see the difference what he enjoys playing here that maybe Rice wasn't doing as much against Wales. I mean, the third goal comes from his magnificent ball over the top, and I think that's something that he has that can really help England. And he's not in the conversation for this game, but if England are winning at 60th minute and he comes on and gets more minutes, I really think he could be in the conversation for the next game. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, talking just about today.
Is there a reason why Rice is the person we've locked in there and not Bellingham?
I think the debate would be Bellingham is in one of these two positions. Bellingham has the skill set to potentially play here or here, and has demonstrated how good and masterful he can be in both of those positions. So I think Bellingham, we're all going to agree that Bellingham is in the team. Yeah. It's whether he's here or here.
Ooh, okay.
I'm inclined, I don't know how you feel about this, I'm inclined to say that Jude Bellingham plays here, and that allows Jordan Henderson to play alongside Declan Rice. This man is arguably the best captain that club football has had, certainly in the past decade. Wow. He is, well, if you think about what he did for that Liverpool team, the resilience that they demonstrated. They nearly won the Premier League, they didn't win it, they bounced back. They nearly won a Champions League, they didn't win it, they bounced back. He has the ability and the leadership quality to lead this team through that midfield. It's a very inexperienced midfield. It's a very talented midfield, but it's a very inexperienced one. And part of the reason that I'm so adamant Jordan Henderson starts is because I would also say that Trent Alexander-Arnold starts, and Trent Alexander-Arnold. Well, some of Trent Alexander-Arnold's brilliance is due to Jordan Henderson's self-sacrifice.
Would you not, Rory, say though that if Henderson and Rice played, wouldn't you not be calling him out for being defensive? Gareth Southgate, he always plays that. He's thinking about defending rather than going forward. That's the argument that a lot of people make. I think we've all probably been guilty of doing that as well. Henderson and Rice is definitely. It's more defensive than Bellingham and Mount, or Bellingham and Foden.
It's not my midfield.
See, I would say that Rice, for me, isn't necessarily... So Jordan Henderson, obviously his priorities lie protecting. That's what he does. But I don't necessarily see Rice in the same way. I see Rice more as a box-to-box midfielder who obviously does an awful lot of work protecting this back line, but has the ability to contribute going forward as well. I don't think it's two defensive midfielders. I think it's one holding midfielder and then two interchangeable.
I don't think we've seen the Rice of West Ham in this England side so far this tournament, because he can really take that ball forward. He really can.
But we did see it in the previous tournament.
He
is capable of doing it in the international level.
In a two with Phillips, because Phillips kind of dealt with all that kind of defensive side. I mean, I've got Bellingham here. And as Rory mentioned, Rory wants to put him here. I actually want to put him here. Now, I don't think this is what Southgate's going to do, but if I was making the decisions, I would put him here. This is something where I think, I'd actually probably be asking Rice to be a bit more defensive. However, Bellingham can do that as well. Bellingham is literally the perfect midfielder. He can attack, he can defend, he can do everything.
Something slightly baffling is occurring here, because if you I'm interested to see where Zac's going, because if Zac's going Bellingham here, you're obviously not playing Jordan Henderson.
Yeah.
So what's happening here?
Okay, so if I'm playing Bellingham here, I'm putting someone like Phil Foden into...
I thought you were going to say Mason Mount then. I thought you were going to say Mason Mount.
There's an argument for Mason Mount.
There is?
I'm not going to make that just yet. But Phil Foden, in my opinion, needs to be in this team. And with who I've got on the wings, I don't think he's going to fit there.
But does that not restrict Jude Bellingham? You said he's the perfect midfielder. If you're playing with Rice at the back...
Not necessarily, because this is like... You can have an attack that features Rice dropping back and Bellingham.
Didn't work against the USA though.
But it did work against Iran. It works.
It's a right. Come on, this is Senegal, the champions of Africa.
Sure, but this is the champions of Africa without Sadio Mane, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to them at all. England should be beating Senegal, and England should be able to play a team that are dominant on the ball, because that's the thing. England are going to have a lot of this ball, and I think you need players who are going to take the risky pass, going to be creative, and I think having your most creative player.
Zach, if you put Phil Foden here, just to explore it, if you put Phil Foden here, part of what Harry Kane is doing so well is dropping deep. Do you not nullify Kane's input into the game, where he drops deep, plays like all of our lots of our through balls, lots of our line breaking passes are played by Harry Kane. I think over 20% of England's line breaking passes are played by Harry Kane, and he does that by finding the space in this pocket.
That's fine.
They're not going to be treading on each other's toes.
Surely it's better to have Phil Foden there than a Henderson there and a Bellingham and Kane still doing that. Because Kane's always going to do that, no matter what he's going to drop deep.
I get quite bored of the argument of like Kane should just be in the box and all this. Like, he's not going to do that. Like, let's get over it. He's not going to do that. So stop complaining. And he's amazing. He's amazing at dropping into here. I completely agree. This is where my wingers come into it. There's a winger in this squad. In my squad, Marcus Rashford, I'm just going to say it, Marcus Rashford, who also likes drifting into the middle. And that's where I also think Phil Foden will then have the space. One of the best things we actually saw was when Phil Foden moved over to the left and had space to attack, to go forwards.
This is a very fluid team.
Very fluid I will always say, whenever I've looked at being a setting up a team, I do like a fluid attack. I like the fact that I think football nowadays isn't about specific roles. If you see a lot of the best managers in the world, they don't kind of put you down to one specific role, especially in attack. And so yeah, I would be having Bellingham here, Phil Foden here, Rashford on the left.
Right, let's lock in some positions then. Let's lock in the centre mid position.
I think you're the one that's got to make the decision here.
I was incredibly honourable, and I fell on my sword when I suggested Trent Alexander-Arnold. But Jordan Henderson plays.
I think Jordan Henderson plays.
I'm not bothered if I see Jordan Henderson starting, I'm not going, oh my God, what are we doing?
No, I think it's both of them. I'm going to be honest. I think Henderson plays next to Rice and then Bellingham plays in front. Surely we can agree
Fair
on
play,
that.
If that's what you guys
that works for me. Go on. Let's remove them. Let's get rid, and then we'll put those in. And we could maybe make some changes. We still got substitutes we can bring in at some point. All right. Okay. Looking very strong. Let's go to the right wing then first, because it's been widely reported Saka is starting today. Does Phil Foden deserve to be dropped?
Phil Foden has to be in the team. There is one player, in this debate, I'm completely open to exploring everything, and there isn't any major issue for me. The hill that I will die on is Phil Foden must be on this board. Whatever way round we want to make it happen, Phil Foden has to be on this board. Phil Foden is England's most mercurial player. He's England's most unpredictable player, and I use the word unpredictable in a very good connotations.
Positive,
And I think that he is one of the main reasons, if I were to say, name 3 reasons why England may win the World Cup, Phil Foden is in that list. He therefore must be in this team.
So out of these 5 key decisions that he's got to make, I think that's the most important.
It's the easiest, Carl.
Is it the worst decision if he doesn't start?
It's the easiest decision to make in the world. Simply, to answer this question, Gareth Southgate has to say, Phil Foden's in my team, now work out what happens after that. It's the easiest decision. Phil Foden must be on this board. I
think one of the things with Foden as well, for a long time people had said he hadn't done it for England. He hadn't been, when he had been played, he wasn't great for England. And, there are different arguments for the fact that he'd been played on the wing and maybe you're not playing in that 10 position, which is fine. But the game against Wales, that second half in particular, Foden was different gravy. He really did turn it on. And I think that switch from the right in which he started to the left really did see the best out of him. When he's on the ball and he's driving at players, because in that first half he wasn't on the ball enough. He was actually just in a lot of space and not getting onto the ball. Moved onto the left, and when he was on that ball, whether he was taking someone on or making the creative pass, he could do it all.
Scoring a goal from that side as well, like ramming it home as it came across.
Really good movement.
Linking up with Kane.
You leave out Rashford, you leave out Grealish, you leave out Sterling.
Yeah.
You leave out those 3 players to put Phil Foden on the left.
So I think it makes it tough. Hearing that Saka's already going to start makes it in your head, just you put him in your team already. But in a realistic world, in my world, I put Rashford in. I put Rashford in because that's the thing with tournament football. Whilst I think the Premier League, the way it was looking, you'd be playing Saka. I completely agree.
Yeah, but forget for a second forget that he's playing, all right, and that decision's maybe already been made.
Then I'm putting Rashford in.
Yeah. So, but does Saka deserve to be dropped?
Do you know what,
It's
Cole?
not
It's a meritocracy. It's not necessarily being dropped. It's that somebody else has come in. Marcus Rashford has come in, scored goals, looked hot, looked really hot. And sometimes when a player has got that bit of heat around them, it has to be nurtured. It has to be encouraged.
Tournament form.
Yeah.
Isn't that what Saka did in the first game, though?
First game, but then it didn't happen in the USA, and so it's about confidence.
Okay,
I think
that.
But that's a part of management, and that's a part of something that Gareth has to manage. Yeah, exactly. Manage well. I'm trying to look for the other word. Manage well, and it's about the better player throughout the year is probably going to be Saka, unless Rashford takes this into the second half of the season. But with the way the tournament is looking, after a couple of games, and the last game in particular. It's Marcus Rashford. I think if you're Marcus Rashford, you get dropped in this game against Senegal. You go, what more do I have to do? Like, I scored 2 goals. I really was the guy that made the difference.
And he's got that spark. Like, I think even if you just remove all of the context about say form over the past, what do we judge it on? 18 months. Just remove all of the context. You can't judge somebody who you can't drop somebody who's got that energy, that buzz about them. And Marcus Rashford certainly has that.
Kane hasn't had a shot on target this tournament. Just saying, that's all I'm saying, OK? Right, let's make a decision. On the right wing we were starting, so is Saka out completely?
Yeah, he's out of my team. For me, it's Foden and Rashford.
See, that's what it is for me. But I do want to make an argument.
Some mad Zac Djellab formation.
I do want to make an argument for Saka because I can understand. I think what he might have viewed is like we don't know maybe the tactical side that they've looked at Senegal, and maybe they've seen the weakness, because the one thing that Saka is really good at is driving at people from that right wing. I'd actually probably say better than maybe Marcus Rashford would be. Marcus Rashford's really good going in behind. Fantastic at doing that. But if he's thinking, okay, they're going to be playing a deep block. They're going to be, or at least for that first half, they're going to be playing a deep block, and we want to kind of get round them or go at them. Saka is probably better at that than Marcus Rashford.
Do you think he offers more protection? Do you think that's part of Gareth
Southgate?
Southgate?
He might do that as well. It's difficult making a decision.
He probably does. He probably does offer a bit more protection going back, and maybe it's a thing where he's looking at and going, first 45 minutes, don't concede. Yeah. Don't concede. Second 45 minutes, score. And that's simple. And maybe that's when he brings on someone like Marcus.
Right, let's lock in then. Foden and Rashford.
I'm more than happy.
All right, let's lock that in because I'm happy with this as well.
Foden this side, Rashford that side.
Wait, Rashford.
They were better. They were better when Foden switched to the left in the second half and Rashford was on the right. They were much better, in my opinion.
Okay.
All right. So we'll do this. Thinking about second half. So, Rory, the big question: you see this team sheet an hour and a half before the game. Mm-hmm. You're happy with it because we've chosen it. Yep. We lose. You're not calling for Southgate out. No, if he's done nothing wrong, it's like
no. But I mean, it's often boiled down to tactics and inspiration and things like that. And look, I think that this team, when you look at the talent in this team, when you look at the players that we've left out of this team, like Raheem Sterling's not in this team. He's a sensational footballer. He's not in this team.
I would have never
Jack
thought
Grealish's
that.
Not in this team. Sensational footballer, not in this team. Callum Wilson's always looking very lively when he comes on, not in this team. So I think that we have an elite team, and I don't think we have an elite manager. That's my issue.
Does Callum Wilson get game time? Because the question around Harry Kane, we locked him in to start definitely.
If it is the 75th minute, I could bring on Callum Wilson. I don't take Kane off. I think there is something about Harry Kane.
What's the score though? What you mean?
Is it 0-0?
If it's 0-0, if it's 0-0, I don't take Harry Kane off.
No. Would you play two?
I could. Yeah, I'd get Callum Wilson on in some way, shape. Maybe I'd drop a Henderson or whatever it might be to get another person in that box. One of the things I've been really impressed with Callum Wilson is his.
That's crazy shout right there. We've got extra time as well and penalties.
Exactly. So you keep Harry Kane on. Harry Kane is one of the best strikers in the world. Yeah. He's one of the best strikers in the world. You're in a knockout game for 120 minutes if it gets to that.
Do you think we change the system like that, though? Like, I think that I like. It's inspiring and
maybe
it's going for the jugular, but that's not Southgate.
Maybe what he does is go to the three at the back. These move to a three. Yeah. Saka comes on to a wing-back position. I just think Harry Kane, taking off Harry Kane, and I can understand it in the group games because it's like, okay, let's make sure he doesn't get injured, and you know Wilson really did impress me because one of the best things I thought, he was really good at getting the other players involved.
Yeah, very
fantastic
unselfish.
At it, I can understand. But Harry Kane is a player who can score something from nothing. He's a guy. He's not as good as him for sure, but he's like our Lionel Messi. Yeah. He's someone where you just can't. You can't, unless he is injured, you can't take him off that pitch.
It's generous, but I know the point.
For sure.
Yeah,
He's our best player. He's our best player in this team. He really is.
I think we can all agree it's difficult then, Gareth Southgate's job, isn't it? Because we've just spent 15 minutes trying to do it. And
do you know what?
It's not easy.
It's very difficult, but it's not as difficult as if you didn't have these problems. It's far harder if you didn't have all of these elite players.
Yes.
This is a much easier job, having to make decisions where you're swapping out elite footballer for elite footballer and leaving out players that have won Premier League title after Premier League title in Raheem Sterling. Leaving players like that out makes your job easier, not harder.
That's true. Right, well, what do you think of our team right here? We had 5 key decisions that Gareth Southgate had to get right. Did we get them right? Let us know. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What would your starting 11 look like in this round of 16 game against Senegal? As always, we'll be here every single match day, which means we'll be talking about it tomorrow. Win or lose for England. If we're through to the quarterfinals or not, we'll be back with a heated debate brought to you by Emirates, and we'll see you tomorrow.